Chapter 16. 4 a.m. UTC-6, 11 a.m. UTC+1. "Charlie Hebdo!" I heard a voice shouting. I woke and sat up in bed, recognized my apartment. The voice had been my own. Dreaming. I lay down. I found myself sitting in the restaurant named Le Voyageur. Tuesday, the completion of my long day of travel. Although I knew the next day skip would take me back to the Charlie Hebdo event, I was too exhausted to think about it. So I ate, paid the bill, back to the hotel. The customer service agent informed me that my room was ready. When I entered room 35, it felt like coming home. I quickly moved in. After a relaxing shower, I emerged from the washroom to see that it was 6 minutes until noon, Paris time. A towel around my waist, I sat on a chair and lowered my head. But not to pray. I bent over my phone and started to play a video game. I stumbled. My mind had suddenly switched in the day skip from exhausted and blank to adrenaline-saturated and focused. My body had switched from sitting on a comfortable hotel chair to walking across a Paris street outside the Charlie Hebdo office. Neither mind nor body handled the change well. My foot skidded, knee buckled, and arms flailed. I went down. The two men on the nearby sidewalk stopped talking as they noticed the clumsy action. "Ça va?" one of them inquired. At least I got their attention, I thought as I remembered what I was attempting, to clear the street of bystanders before the Kouachi brothers returned. I jumped up toward the two men. "Terrorist! Charlie Hebdo! Danger!" The message didn't have much effect. Maybe it was due to my drunken-looking stumble, maybe the lack of any noticeable danger. The men moved away from me and resumed their discussion. I blurted out, "Surveillez! La voiture noire!" I felt more than a little disgusted with not being taken seriously. Again. I turned to the left to warn the next bystander, but only took a few steps. "The smoking lady is gone. Good." So I waited, leaning against the building across from Charlie Hebdo. The two nearby men continued talking animatedly, negotiating a business deal. More minutes ticked by. It was now 11:12. I heard a sound to the right, by a corner. Another woman! She handled her phone while eating an apple, apparently on a break from work. And at that moment, a couple of short blocks further on, the same black Citroën reappeared. I started quickly down the sidewalk. I called over my shoulder to the two men, "La voiture noire!" I reached the dark-haired woman at the corner. "Cette voiture," I pointed, and she looked. "Les terroristes. Armes. Charlie Hebdo. Danger." The black Citroën slid by. Yes, the Kouachis. My heart beat hard. The Citroën slowed to park in an open spot not far from the Charlie Hebdo entrance. I took a step toward it. I was not going to allow them to, but the young woman beside me tugged at my arm, oddly so. "Viens avec moi," she urged, looking worried. In hesitation, I stopped. She pulled me around the corner toward a door. A backwards glance told me that the two businessmen on the street had noticed the black car and were hastily walking away. Why didn't I pull away from the woman's grasp so I could go confront the Kouachis? She led me up 2 flights of stairs and into a room where 4 women worked by desks and tables. A logo on the door read "L'Unice France." Pictures of lace, badges, sequins, and other decorative items filled the walls. The room's windows faced the Charlie Hebdo offices across the street. I went to look out. A lady at a nearby desk looked surprised and demanded, "Qu'est-ce que vous voulez?" The woman who brought me into the building quickly answered that trouble had come to the street and suggested they call the police. But the worker wasn't convinced. She looked out the window and observed, "Rien se passe." She was right. Nothing was happening. I bit my lip in uncertainty. The Kouachi brothers remained in their car. I could see them. What are they doing? Should I rush out there and try to divert them? A movement on the street caught my eye. Oh no! Another woman had appeared on the sidewalk with a little girl skipping alongside. The woman stopped at the Charlie Hebdo entry and started to press buttons on the security keypad. In the next instant, the Kouachi brothers emerged from their car. My mouth went dry. The brothers had pulled balaclavas over their heads, and they held rifles. They moved toward the Charlie Hebdo entry and pointed their guns toward the woman, who quickly clasped the child to her. I heard someone in the room now frantically talking to police on the phone. I was about to run out of the office and down the stairs when the Kawashi stepped forward again. They shouted at the woman, gesturing to be let inside the building. She screamed when one of the brothers made a move toward the child. She quickly punched the remainder of the code into the keypad. The mother and daughter ran inside. The brothers followed. I heard a terrible sound, a burst of gunfire. A woman in the room threw herself on the floor in fear. The lady on the phone grew more frantic. "What can I do now?" I felt frantic too. Grim silence filled the scene. Suddenly, more gunfire, much more, in rapid succession. A pause, another burst. I felt a hot tear run down my cheek, but I remembered my original plan now that intervention on the street level seemed impossible. I turned to the woman who had brought me into the building. "Au sommet?" I stammered, seeking the correct word. She looked confused. I pointed up and made a peaked shape with my arms. "Roof?" she questioned. I nodded. Although she clearly didn't understand, she motioned for me to follow, hesitating only a moment as she considered where to go. She led me up another flight of stairs and down a hallway. We came to a door marked Accès au toit. I nodded and she disappeared. The wooden access door was locked. I glanced either way, feeling a little guilty over what I was about to do, then forcefully kicked the door as hard as I could. "Oh, just about broke my ankle!" But the door moved. Another kick, a third kick, and it gave way. A short stair led to another door. It opened without being forced. Immediately I heard the sound of gunfire again. I grabbed a loose brick which lay on the flat rooftop and went to the side facing Charlie Hebdo, keeping low behind the short wall at the edge. I looked over the ledge. I pressed the icon for the video camera on my phone and started recording. More shots. I flinched. Sirens wailed in the distance. I zoomed in on the license plate of the Kawashi vehicle. Maybe 10 minutes after they entered, the Kawashi brothers came running out. With sudden anger coursing in my veins, I stood, held the brick high, and hurled it down. It missed everything and crunched onto an open patch of street. The brothers didn't even notice and clambered into their car. I aimed my phone again as the car began moving. The sirens were much louder. The getaway car made a quick right onto Allée Verte, disappearing out of sight behind a building. After just a moment, I heard the screeching of brakes. There came another intense burst of gunfire. Then, squealing tires. The black Citroën suddenly reversed back into view. I still recorded. The terrorists slammed their car into forward gear and tore off southward on Rue Nicolas Appert, right underneath my perch. It raced to the end of the street, turned left, and again disappeared. I stopped recording. The sounds of acceleration and screeching brakes grew fainter. But one more round of gunshots rang out before the sounds of violence seemed to come to an end. Police officers now ran on foot toward the Charlie Hebdo doors. Some terror-stricken workers emerged and called for help. More sirens approached. Looking down on it all, I cried aloud in frustration and anger. It was 11:51 a.m. Others had joined me on the roof. At 11:54 I made my way down through the building to the street. It was filling with stunned onlookers, police, and rescue personnel. Then came a moment of mercy for my soul. In the chaos of misery, I spotted the woman who had been forced to unlock the Charlie Hebdo doors for the gunman. Her daughter stood with her, and they both appeared uninjured physically, although clearly distraught. I breathed a sigh of relief. Heal their souls. I sank to the sidewalk to wait for a police officer, and suddenly I faced 3 of them, Police Nationale investigators. No one spoke. It seemed like they expected something. Then I figured it out. I'm back at the Avia service station, and Jeremy has just asked me if I was the one who called him. They're waiting for me to reply. "Yes, I'm Kyle Stone. I called you," I volunteered quickly. Too quickly. Each investigator's eyes narrowed with suspicion. But Jeremy nodded to his partners. Those 2 asked the store employees who stood nearby to come with them. The 4 individuals moved to a different part of the store. Jeremy stared at me, and I shifted uncomfortably. "My associates," the policeman said at last, "will take the employees' statements as to what happened here. You, however, are a different case." Jeremy led me to the self-service coffee bar. 4 tall stools were placed around a high table. Jeremy sat and indicated I should take the place across from him. As I perched on the stool, I tried to mentally and emotionally separate myself from the intense situation I'd just minutes before experienced by Charlie Hebdo. I needed to be present. Jeremy began listing details, extending a finger for each. 1. You know my name and my phone number. 2. You were in Montrouge and witnessed the shooting this morning, but did not stay to give your statement to police. 3. You know the shooter's last name is Koulibaly. 4. You know this Koulibaly is connected to the Kawashi brothers who attacked Charlie Hebdo. 5. You knew the Kawashi brothers would rob this service station before it happened, and drove here to meet them. Jeremy looked like he might become angry. With all that, Kyle Stone of the city of Swiftcurrent in Saskatchewan, who flew into Paris 2 days ago via Frankfurt and Toronto, yes, I have discovered some details about your life. With all that, tell me why I should not arrest you as an accomplice to these terrorists. I swallowed. Well, I began, knowing I needed to answer carefully. For starters, if you have looked into my history, you already know I've never had any ties or contact with these terrorists or any other terrorist organization. Jeremy shrugged. None we know of, but there are lots of freshly radicalized young men these days connecting with terrorists via the anonymity of the internet. He leaned forward. How do you know all the things you do if you do not have ties with the terrorists? You said during our phone call you would tell me. I took a deep breath. Okay, you won't believe this, but here goes. Several days ago I sustained a head injury. I don't know how or why, but since that injury I am experiencing time differently than anyone else. Jeremy plainly didn't understand. I looked at my phone. It's 11:15 Thursday morning. In 45 minutes, what hour will you experience next? Jeremy didn't respond immediately, as if he considered whether answering would leave him open to a trick. Finally, in 45 minutes it will be 12 noon. I nodded. Yes, and everyone will experience the hour from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Everyone except me. In 45 minutes, the hour I experience will be 11 a.m. tomorrow, Friday. Jeremy whistled. You are correct, monsieur. I do not believe you. The head injury has scrambled your wits. I couldn't believe it myself at first, but it's happened too many times to deny. I am skipping through the days from 1 hour one day to the same hour the next day. That's how I know some things no one else does, because I've already lived at a time when such information is available. That's how I knew where to be to try to help in certain events, like here at the Kawashi robbery, for example. Jeremy leaned back and ran his fingers through thinning hair. You could be acting, young man. I am tempted to place you in custody and worry about this later. He stood and went to the coffee dispensers. I had an idea and exclaimed, Un café américain. Jeremy looked at me and I continued, That's how you like your coffee, right? Weak, like we have it in North America, not like your strong French coffee. Jeremy harumphed. Lucky guess. He turned back to the coffee dispenser. No, not lucky, I countered. You yourself told me, and will tell me, tomorrow. No reply. I thought carefully while the Frenchman prepared his coffee. I remembered and reached into my jacket pocket to withdraw a small slip of paper. Jeremy returned to the table. I leaned forward. Okay, it doesn't matter if you believe me about the day skips. I've got something which can help your investigation. I handed the notepaper to Jeremy. The investigator looked. A cell phone number? I nodded. I got it when the Kawashis robbed this business. It is the phone number of their accomplice, Amadi Koulibaly. Jeremy sat for a moment, clearly struggling to understand. But duty asserted itself over confusion. You're certain? I nodded. Jeremy stood. I must give this to my superior, he said, and walked briskly toward another agent. I recognized him as the man who had ordered/would order me out of the police prefecture. As Jeremy spoke with him, the man looked toward me and glared. Nevertheless, he took the paper and immediately made a phone call. It took some time for the police investigators to finish their discussion. While I waited, another idea occurred to me about how to prove my truthfulness to Jeremy, the selfie video, the video which mentioned Jeremy by name. I took my phone, it was now 11:30, and found the video album. But before I accessed the selfie, I noticed something strange. Where's the video I just recorded during the Charlie Hebdo attack? It was missing. In another 5 minutes, Jeremy returned. Before Jeremy could speak, I said, "I want to show you a video. It is a video I discovered on my phone last night during the rally at Place de la République. It's a video of myself. I'm trying to explain to myself how to handle these day skips." I pressed play and handed the phone to Jeremy. When he heard himself identified in the video, Jeremy's brow furrowed deeply. But when it was over, he handed the phone back to me. "There is more than one Jeremy Blanc in France. This proves nothing." "Wow, you're a tough character." Jeremy's tone was crisp. "I need to speak more with you, Kyle. I have been assigned to discover how you may help us. You will leave with us soon, when a helicopter comes. Be ready." I nodded. If I didn't go willingly, they'd probably put me in handcuffs. Jeremy turned to leave, but I called him back. "My car is outside," I explained. "I should get it back to the rental agency." Jeremy chuckled. "We're not going to let you drive off on us this time, young man." He opened a notepad. "Tell me the location of the agency and we will make sure your car is returned." He glanced up suspiciously when I mentioned the car rental agency was located in Montrouge. Jeremy went off. I felt weary. At 10:53 a.m., the sounds of a helicopter filtered into the service station. Jeremy motioned for me, and together we exited the building. The fresh air felt good on my face. We and some others climbed into the helicopter. It lifted from the ground. "Puis-je prendre votre assiette?" came a voice at my side, startling me. "What? Take my plate?" I wasn't sitting in a helicopter, but in a restaurant chair. A waitress stood at my side. An empty plate sat near the edge of the table. The waitress didn't wait for me to answer and simply removed the dirty dishes. I rubbed the sides of my head and felt surprised at how much stress lingered from the interview with Jeremy. I forced myself to collect my wits. It's Friday. What am I doing? Oh yes, I think I was praying because what I'm about to do will be risky. I reviewed my how to decide checklist. Pray, done that. Adapt as the situation unfolds. Think on your feet. Don't expect the plan to develop exactly the way you envision it. So that means, right now, I will call Koulibaly with a general goal, but adapt to what is revealed in the call. I won't act on the pressure I feel to plan it out just right ahead of time. Live out your values. I won't try to fool him. I will be honest. I will offer him the best hope I know. He is human. He will be desperate. Maybe an offer of hope will do something. I sat. Despite all the inner reassurances, I still felt too nervous to call. So instead, I paid the bill for the meal, went to the washroom, returned to the table. Still couldn't call. I felt as if I might start quivering. More than a little disgusted with myself, I took my phone and brought up a Paris news website. The first headline grabbed my attention. Gunfire near Charles de Gaulle. Charlie Hebdo terrorists cornered in a print shop in Dammartin-en-Gaule. I devoured the information. Looks like that situation is in its final stages. News reports also revealed that police now admitted a connection existed between the Charlie Hebdo attack and the policewoman's shooting in Montrouge. I told them that, I commented with some satisfaction. I put down the phone and thought about the Montrouge situation. Why did Koulibaly shoot the policewoman? It's not as if she was threatening him. Maybe he wanted to attract attention, draw resources away from the hunt for the Kouachis. A minute passed as another thought took shape. The brothers and Koulibaly are undoubtedly in communication. They had his phone number. So now that they're cornered, will he try something else to again divert attention from them? The thought made my blood run cold. And that proved to be the motivation I needed. I retrieved the notepaper with Koulibaly's phone number and entered the digits into my phone. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3 rings. Please help me communicate adequately in French. 4 rings. 5 rings. 6 rings. No answer. I waited a minute and redialed. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3 rings. A click. Quoi? demanded a male voice. I got to the point, hoping to seize his attention. Amadi Coulibaly, vous avez tué ce policier à Montrouge. J'ai jeté des objets vers toi. The silence of surprise filled the line. Then, quel est votre nom? Comment avez-vous mon numéro? He's wondering who I am and how I got his number. Mon nom est Kyle Stone. Votre numéro de Kouachis. Even if I didn't say it quite right, mentioning their name will shock him. He demanded to know what I wanted. I answered honestly, Je veux te rencontrer. Yes, I want to meet with you, keep you from doing any more harm, and maybe save your soul. More shocked silence until, Êtes-vous avec la police? Am I with the police? I smiled, because since being removed from the police prefecture, I could honestly answer, Non. N'avez-vous pas peur que je vais tirer sur vous? This took a moment to translate. Yes, I am afraid you might shoot me. But again, I could answer sincerely, Oui, mais j'ai quelque chose d'important pour vous. I did have something important for Coulibaly. Hope. The voice on the line snarled. Je suis dans le 20e arrondissement. The call ended. The 20th district? I wondered. I looked up the location. It's on the east side of the city. I immediately phoned Jeremy to inform him of Coulibaly's general location. But the police investigator's phone didn't ring. Voicemail activated. His phone's turned off. I ended the call without leaving a message, and instead sent a text. Coulibaly is in the 20th district. Call me. For the next minute, I debated whether I should go back to the police prefecture and inform someone in person of Coulibaly's whereabouts. But I didn't know exactly where the man was, and thought about how difficult it would be to explain just how I knew Coulibaly's phone number and location. I knew in my heart what I must do. Try to find a man who was angry, violent, probably scared, and certainly lost. I looked again at the map and saw that a metro trip to the 20th arrondissement would take about half an hour. I could get there by 1:15 or a bit later. I left the restaurant before fear stopped me. Outside, weak sunlight filtered down to street level. I turned right and came to a broad cobblestoned walkway. Near Place Louis Lepine Park, I found the Cité metro station. I descended the stairs, paid the fare, and waited for the next northbound Line 4 train. It was 11:44 a.m., almost noon, in Paris. At home, 5 a.m. approached. At 11:45 the train arrived. At 11:50 the train stopped at Châtelet station. At 11:55 it stopped at Les Halles station. As the train slowed to enter Etienne Marcel station, I day-skipped.